It's the Arch Advocate podcast for Monday the 13th. Ding, 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 ding. Spooky. It's the 13th. We got a lot to get to. Tai Lopez on the Ben Shapiro show, the H3 podcast, which, by the way, if you're not into it, you should get into it. That's a really good podcast. That's kind of like one of those podcasts where it's like, man, I wish I was where those guys are at. You know what I mean? Really good podcast. They have good guests, and yeah, the people are funny. The CNN Trump voter plant. Want to get to that? Okay, we just found out that we had a damn terrorist training camp in the United States. Not like the IRA, right? The Irish Republican Army. Not those terrorists. Not a bunch of people who live in the Pyrenees Mountains between Spain and France, known as the Basque. Not Basque people. Another group of people, right? Muslim terrorists in America running a training camp where they're teaching kids to shoot up schools, and the dead body of a child was found. And mainstream media, outside of Fox News, mainstream media has nothing to say about. I guess that's not newsworthy. Now think about this, right? Like, here's the problem, and this is a problem with all of us, is that we, me too, like this, pound me too. This is something that I go through as well, is that like we sort of lose sight because of the 24-hour news cycle, which, by the way, was invented during, what was it, Desert Storm. There was no such thing as a 24-hour news cycle up until that point, right? Back when George Bush was president, George Bush Sr. was president, former head of the CIA, George Bush. Let me not get all conspiracy theory, but think about this, right? What if it was February, or let's just say it was August of the year 2002, right? So not a full year after the attack of September 11th. What if it was August of 2002 and news broke out that there was an Islamic terrorist training camp on U.S. soil, right? But you know what I mean? Like back then, if there was a plane crash anywhere in the world, the entire world would come to a halt and all of the news would be focused on that. Like, whoa, who was it? Was it a terrorist attack? Or was it just some drunk guy, piloting a plane? You know what I mean? Like the whole world would have come to a screeching halt. And now it's 2018, and because of some weird narrative, right? It either has to be like a controlled narrative or the fear of being seen as being politically incorrect. It's like, dude, it doesn't matter if it's politically incorrect. It happened. It's a thing that happened. Report on that. There is a terrorist training camp happening on our soil. Yeah, you've got nothing? You don't have any questions about that. MSNBC, CNN, NBC, ABC, you have nothing to say about that. The Young Turks, which is obviously they're not a news organization, but it's like you pretend to be one. You've got nothing to say about that. These things are getting. It's very difficult to process that information. Like, why aren't you like you are right now fighting the president of the United States because he's calling you fake news. And then it turns out that there's a terrorist training camp going on in the United States. Not Basque, not Amish, not Irish Republican Army, but an Islamic terrorist training camp. You're fighting the president because he keeps calling you fake news, and you don't report on that. You don't send your finest journalist down there to dig and mine for the facts. You just got nothing. What was that conversation like? I mean, surely not everybody at NBC or whatever parent company owns, Disney, for example, that owns everything, Comedy Central, whatever. I could be wrong about that, but not everybody that works for mainstream media it can possibly be on board. There had to have been some journalist that went to their boss and said, hey, did you hear about this? I need some money for a plane ticket and for hotel rooms and whatever, and I need a crew of 4 people. I need to go down to Taos, New Mexico. I need to find out what's going on. What was that conversation like? Oh no, Johnny reporter. Oh, we can't send you down there. What are you talking about? This is a huge story. Oh well, we'd rather we'd rather report on. I don't know. I don't even know what those, because I don't watch. Oh, we'd rather have this fake panel meeting set up where we take this guy who has all of these, Instagram videos and Twitter videos and YouTube videos where he's just, for years he's just been bashing Donald Trump, and now we want to put him in a panel where it's like, oh, he actually voted for Trump and now he regrets it. It's like, you're gonna run that fake ass story, which was debunked like the day it came out. There's like 3 different places where I've seen that story's been debunked and the truth about that guy has come out. It's like, no, we'd rather run this fake story than to send, Johnny Reporter down to Taos, New Mexico with a crew of people to find out, what's happening? What's happening to our society? How is it that I can see this and not everybody else in the world can see it? You know what I mean? Like if you're listening to me right now, like, if you know what I'm talking about. So, CNN did that story where they had an actor, right? They had a guy that clearly, with his history on social media, clearly this guy never had any love for Trump, right? And they put him in a panel of like, I don't know, 6 people or 8 people of like people who voted for Trump. And he was like, oh yeah, I voted for Trump. I thought he was great, and now I think he's a racist, bigot, homophobe, whatever. It's like, okay, you paid that guy. You paid that guy to say a bunch of BS. There is no way you didn't know about this guy. You know what I mean? So, evidently, that story was more newsworthy. That's the important thing that CNN or whoever it was, maybe it was MSNBC, is like, that was more important to you to tell the American people than the fact that there is a terrorist training camp on U.S. soil. Oh, boy. Anyways, I didn't want to start off with that. What I wanted to start off with, a couple things. So, Tai Lopez, all right? Now, this show is actually, the Arch Advocate podcast, it goes back to December of last year, when it was the Cryptocurrency podcast, because, I'm fascinated with currency exchanges and, how markets work and all that stuff. So cryptocurrency market sprang up, and it's fascinating. That's where I started my show. It's like, oh, I know what this is. I can talk about this. I'm versed in this particular topic. But then it just, the fact that the whole world's going crazy, it just, it was too much work for me to not talk about politics when talking about economics, because they're tied together. So that, the show morphed into this show, and to the originals of, to my listeners that are still around from that show, affectionately referred to as the Crypto Creeps, that I've always hated Tai Lopez. I think he's a phony and a fraud, right? But you know what? Like, we're all susceptible to getting roped in, right? I've said this before. Like, if you go back, like, pick a president that you hate. Maybe you hated George Bush. Maybe you hated Barack Obama. Maybe you hated Bill Clinton. Maybe you hated Ronald Reagan. I don't know. But the one thing is that if you go back, just pick the president that you hate, pull up a YouTube video of the State of the Union address, any one of them, from that president, and I'm telling you, when you hear that speech, you will be inspired. There's no getting around it, because the people that write those speeches are professional writers. Like, they know what they're doing. They know their stuff, and that's why those speeches are so good. You listen to them, you're like, wow, yeah, I guess I can see that. Whoa, wait a minute, It happens. It happens to all of us. It happens to me. So I'm not like, preaching to you. Like, this happens to me all the time. And so, yesterday, sitting around the house, And the Ben Shapiro show comes on. He's got a Sunday show where he has on, for the most part, interesting guests. He had Eric Weinstein, whatever. He's had, Mike Rowe, these kind of people. And he's had Joe Rogan on. That wasn't the best interview ever. But, I like Ben Shapiro. I've liked most of those episodes. So he has, I see, the YouTube thing alerts me, hey, the Ben Shapiro show's on. Here's the guest, it's Tai Lopez. And I'm like, oh, no, I hate Tai Lopez. But I do like Ben Shapiro. And I trust Ben Shapiro, right? He's a brilliant mind. So if he sees something good enough in Tai Lopez that he's going to have him on his show, maybe I should hear the guy out, right? Is that fair? Is that a fair, you know what I mean? Like, you guys know, because I've said it before. I've said it long before yesterday. I don't like Tai Lopez. I think he's a charlatan. But here I was. It's like, well, I like Ben Shapiro. He's on the show. Let's hear him out. And I turned it on, and the guy starts talking about, sometimes I go to an Amish, wherever Amish people live. Is compound the right word? I don't think so. Farm, I think, would be the right word. Yeah, sometimes I go and I hang out with the Amish, right? And that's fascinating to me because, like, I do stuff like that. I've gone and hung out with monks, right? Like Catholic monks and Buddhist monks, and I did. There's a thing called a Vipassana center, and that's where monks go and they just meditate for 10 days in a row. I've done that. You know what I mean? Because I'm interested in, like, religions and how they form and whatever. And I have put a certain amount of study into the Amish. And I've always been fascinated to a certain degree by the Amish because, they actually have a pretty cool story. It's, back in the day, the Dutch kind of had, and by the way, the Amish people, they're Dutch. And the Dutch people used to have a sort of undeclared empire, if you will. They ruled the ocean, and they were tyrannical, right? When you watch Pirates of the Caribbean, they talk about the East India Trading Company. That was actually a real thing, and that was the Dutch, and they ruled the oceans. And if you rule the oceans, then you rule the world, and they ruled the world, and they were vicious. They were just horrific people, right? Very violent, very brutal, very pragmatic in the way that they went about it. Like they were a brutal people, and there was this one little, clan of Dutch people, and they were just like, you know what, like we can't deal with this, man. Like, you people are out of your damn minds. You're way too violent. This isn't right. But as it is that you're currently ruling the world, I guess we're the assholes, and so you'll have to excuse us. And that's what they did. They excused themselves from society, from the world. And they said, look, we're just gonna move on to a farm, and we're gonna build really cool barns and make cool furniture, and we're not gonna participate. We just want to follow Jesus and just be left alone because you people are clearly crazy. That's the story of the Amish. So when Tai Lopez introduces himself by talking about, like, yeah, sometimes I go hang out with the Amish, I'm like, go on, tell me more. I was like, oh, here's Tai Lopez. I didn't know that he had any depth to him, right? That seemed kind of deep to me, and I kind of got caught up in that, right? Because I think you should give everybody a fair shot. And I was thinking, well, maybe I never really gave this guy a fair shot because it was so clear to me that he was a charlatan that I would never buy his books. I would never tune into his, YouTube channel. I would never listen to anything the guy has to say because he's famous for being famous. He got rich by pretending he was rich, right? And that's, if you say really smart things, you can convince a lot of people that you're smart. And I saw that from the beginning. But as I was watching that show, I was like, oh man, I think I've had this guy all wrong. And so I went on to my Telegram and I said that. Hey man, you know what? I've taken in new information and I've switched my position, right? That was I wrote that after I'd been watching that show for maybe 15, 20 minutes, that particular episode of the Ben Shapiro show. Then I continued to watch the whole thing. And there came a point where Ben Shapiro started asking him personal questions. Like, who are you? Not like, what books do you read? What are your philosophies? What's your approach to life? Like, those questions he was answering perfectly and kind of like scriptedly, right? But when Ben Shapiro started asking him questions about, well, who are you? What kind of person are you? Why are you not married? Right? Here's the thing. I think these are words to live by. Right? It's okay to be ignorant of a lot of things. Right? I do not know how to perform surgery. I am ignorant of, human physiology to that degree. Right? And I will always be that. I'm never going to dedicate myself to figuring out, how to mend the human body. I'm never going to do that. I'm always going to be ignorant. There's nothing wrong with that, right? But when somebody asks you a question about you and you don't know how to answer, that's a problem, right? That's the only thing. That's the only thing in life that you're ever going to truly know. And even at that, you know what I mean? Like, you're never... You know what I mean? Like, you should always be working on yourself and being able to figure yourself out and define yourself and whatever. It's a journey for sure. But when somebody asks you a question about you, and you start hemming and hawing and you don't know, and you could tell, like, you could see it in that video, he became visibly uncomfortable with a simple question about himself. And then I started noticing, like, oh, this guy can't make eye contact when he speaks. That's another problem. That's a huge tell, right? If you're talking to somebody, you can't keep eye contact with them, like, it's because you're shifty. You know what I mean? Maybe you haven't, and granted, it takes some practice, but it's like, you're in the public, like, you talk to people for a living. This should be, This is something that you could have learned from a book that you read that was published, that came out of the Wharton School of Business. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't a tough one. And so by the end of that conversation, I was like, nope, I'm flip-flopping again. I'm going back to what I originally believed. This guy's a piece of crap. And why did I just tell you all that? Because this is in all of us, right? You have to be aware of this part of all of us, right? I'm not preaching to you, I'm preaching to me, right? These are things that I tell myself, like, be careful. Because you can listen to a State of the Union speech from any president. You can go back to Carter, who, like, I'm pretty sure Jimmy Carter was, like, legitimately the worst president in the history. Well, boy, Woodrow Wilson really gives him a run for his money, but he was a horrible president. Good dude, horrible president, right? And if you went back, if there was footage of a speech that Jimmy Carter gave, you'd be like, man, this guy's making a lot of sense. Because it's scripted, it's perfect. You know what I mean? Like, when they write those things, like, you can get sucked into that. The problem, and I noticed this a long time ago in myself, is that it's like, why do I sit here in church on Sunday and keep listening to these people, right? Some of them are good. Like, there's a handful of people out there that I'll listen to on a regular basis, and I don't care what they say, I'm going to listen to it and consider it. Like Ravi Zacharias, for example. Right? Anything that guy says, like, I'll listen to it because I trust him, I've heard the damnedest things being said across I once just, I'm searching in my mind, but, like, I've heard there was this guy in Miami, he was a preacher, and he was up there saying, like, walking with God, it's a contest, and you need to convert as many souls as you can, and the more people you convince to convert to Christianity, that's how you win the game. It's all a big game, you know what I mean? Like, and he said it very matter-of-factly, and what was worse is that everybody listening was buying it. It's like, dude, that's not even anywhere in Scripture. That's not even You're talking nonsense. Furthermore, you're trying to pressure your flock to go out and get more people to bring them in this room so that they can pay more tithes, so your bank account can get fatter. I see this angle all day long. I've seen the damnedest things I've seen. That's just like one example. Like I could do every show this week for an hour just talking about the nonsense that I've heard over the pulpit, right? And I could do years worth of shows talking about all the good things, like the dead on accurate, like, oh man, that'll preach, that's a good sermon. But the point that I'm getting at is, like, look, we're all susceptible to being led astray, and you have to be objective. You have to, and you can't be ashamed when you realize that you got pulled in, right? It happens. It's all right. Just, acknowledge, move on. That's enough of that. H3 podcast is one of my favorites. As you guys know, I love podcasts. I love podcasting, and I love podcasts. You should be into, if you like podcasts, and if you haven't yet, you should get into H3. You should get into Tim Preuss. You should get into Adam Carolla. He's really funny. Good guest, good interviewer. But the H3 podcast was doing a live, one of those ones that probably had super chats and all that other stuff, but they were doing a live broadcast, and they were talking about Alex Jones getting shut down. And what was funnier is they were bashing on Alex Jones, right? Now, I don't like Alex Jones. I don't dislike him. I just don't. It's like he's just too over the top for me. I'm not into that. I don't like to be spoken to like that. But whatever, to each his own. I don't care. But H3, they were talking about like all the crazy things that Alex Jones had been saying. They weren't justifying him getting shut down. They were just pointing out, like, yeah, this guy's, if anybody was gonna have a target on their back, it was this guy, right? And during that broadcast, the H3 YouTube shut down their live stream, right? Now the thing is that you could make the argument that they did it because they were using Alex Jones footage, and that is, what is that, proprietary, whatever. But no, they shut him down, and then they apologized. YouTube apologized to H3 because they didn't realize that what they were doing was actually bashing on Alex Jones. This is the problem with what's going on right now. Now everybody's saying, like, oh, you can't have the president calling CNN fake news because that's authoritarian and all this other stuff. It's like, well, you can't silence anybody's voice, right? Take it like this. Most of you are old enough to remember the National Enquirer, right? It was a newspaper that had the Bat Boy and first man gives birth to a baby. You know what I mean? Like aliens are invading the moon, whatever. Like they were a tabloid. Like the whole thing about the National Enquirer, like the reason to buy it is the same reason you buy a comic book, right? You buy it because it's like, oh, this is so silly, but it's like the Onion, right? Nobody. You would think nobody would be looking at the National Enquirer like, oh, this is respected journalism. Like, no, the whole thing is the gag. You know what I mean? Remember Bat Boy? That was one of their most famous editions. And on the face of the National Enquirer was this, this kid's face. It looked like a bat, and he had big ears and fangs and whatever. They're like, this kid's like half bat. And that was one of their biggest sellers. Like, the reason to buy the National Enquirer was the gag. That was the whole thing. It was a joke. But there are, or at least there was a lot of people, and I don't know what the numbers are, but there was a lot of people that when they bought the National Enquirer, they saw that as like, oh, I'm getting the news. That's a huge problem, right? As I said before, there's no less than 10%. Right, 10% of the U.S. population literally has an IQ lower than the world's smartest monkey. That's a huge problem. So I don't know what percentage of people were out there buying the National Enquirer and thinking like, oh, this is legit AF, right? But the thing is that there's a lot of our population that is susceptible to tabloid journalism. And mainstream media, all of them, including Fox News, they all know it. And in the pursuit of the almighty dollar, like, they all peddle it, right? So you have to ask yourself, like, because there is a strong element of our population that is, functionally retarded, should we then silence the National Enquirer? Do you? Do you do that? Because there's people that are vulnerable to that, and when they put out Bat Boy as their lead story, there's people that are going to be intellectually harmed by that. They're going to walk around talking about, oh man, there's a kid that was born half bat. Oh man, aliens are infesting the moon. Oh man, a genetically male human being gave birth to a baby. Man, did you hear this? These are strange times. You know what I mean? That's damage. Those stories damaged people intellectually. You know what I mean? It made them stupider. And what I mean by that is, like, they're going to go to their friends and they're going to make themselves look ridiculous. Or worse, they're going to go to their friends and relay that story, and then their friends will believe that BS. It's damage. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, but I'm not responsible for dummies. I want the National Enquirer to keep printing their garbage because I think it's hilarious. Because I'm smart. You know what I mean? And when CNN puts together this, this panel where they put a fake person in there, a paid actor in there to be like, oh yeah, I voted for Donald Trump. It's like tabloid. And then you're going to go ban Alex Jones because he says over-the-top things? You can't do that. You cannot infringe on people's right to free speech. And if you are a powerful organization like a Twitter or YouTube, which is owned by Google or Facebook, you can't be silencing people because it's un-American and it's anti-human. You know what I mean? They have the right to say their nonsense because, look, if they say something that is against the law to say, we call that liable, right? When you slander somebody in writing, that's called liable, right? Like the National Enquirer and the Sun and, all those tabloids, like, I think it was the National Enquirer that got sued really bad by Tom Cruise because they wrote up this whole thing that said he was gay. Right? Well, you're not allowed to do that. That's called printing liable, and it's against the law. It's not a crime, though. Right? You go to civil court for that. Nobody at the National Enquirer was going to go to jail for that. They just got sued and they lost a bunch of money. Right? We have laws regarding the freedom of speech. And when you see Alex Jones, and it doesn't matter what you think about him. It doesn't matter what I think about him. What matters is preserving his right to speak, even if it damages other people, like the National Enquirer. Right? It's like, it's like, well, you can't make a movie about, like if you watch the movie Airplane, well, you can't make a movie like this because there's going to be a certain segment of people that believe that, a blow-up doll can pilot a plane. Well, it's like, well, it's not my responsibility to take care of dumb people. I want to laugh. I want to see a movie where I laugh my dick off, and it doesn't matter to me. I mean, it does in a certain sort of way, but like, it doesn't matter. It's not my responsibility to take care of people who are so dumb that they just believe everything that they're told. And at the same time, you and we all have to be cognizant of the fact that we are susceptible to being drawn in to stories. Does that make sense? That really the way that the news media is going, you have to keep your eye on it and take in as much information and then mull it over. Right? So over the weekend was the 1 year anniversary of the Unite the Right rally in, was it North Carolina or South Carolina? Right? So they all met up again, and this time there was NBC, because again, evidently, NBC thinks it's more important to investigate possible racism than it is to report on the fact that a terrorist camp was on U.S. soil. Oh, and by the way, that guy who was in charge of it, he has 1 degree of separation from Barack Hussein Obama. 1 degree of separation from the former president of the United States. Oh, you've got nothing? Nothing to see here, huh? Oh. So NBC goes down to the Unite the Right rally, and Antifa attacks them violently, beats up one of their reporters, and was it reporters or camera? Anyways, they beat up a bunch of NBC people. NBC is far to the left, right? NBC is there to make Antifa look good, and Antifa attacks them. And what does NBC report on? They say, oh, some of our reporters and cameramen and staff and whatnot, they were, quote, harassed. Nothing more. No, they got beat up. Blood was shed. Blood came out. And they don't want to tell you this? Why not? What are the possible reasons that they would not want to share a truth like that? Maybe not a truth, but a fact. The fact is that Antifa, who has been listed by the Department of Homeland Security as a terrorist group, attacked your journalists. Your journalists. They tried to silence your journalists that were there to make them look like heroes. You don't want to talk about that? What possible reason? You know what I mean? How many options are there? You know, because whenever there's a conspiracy theory, I've said this many times before, anytime there's a conspiracy theory, it's like, okay, well, where's the money in it? You want to convince me of a conspiracy theory, you have to show me the money. Show me how somebody's going to profit from this. You know, and that it either has to be the currency of, you know, money, or the currency of power. You have to show me that. You have to if you want me to be involved in your conspiracy theory, then you have to show me like a trackable reason why somebody would do something like that. So we know that NBC's journalist crew were attacked to the point of bleeding, and we know that NBC decided to gloss right over that. Oh, they were just harassed by some unruly kids, right? Why didn't she tell the truth? Why didn't you tell the facts of that? Well, and again, right, you have to understand, like, a conversation happened, right? Whoever the main reporter person was, they had to go back to the people that they're accountable to, and they had to say, well, look, we were attacked, so here's the story that I've written, right? We can put this on the news. Here's the story. Here's what happened. And then somebody else came in and said, we cannot tell these facts. Why? Why would you do that? If you're controlling a narrative, it's like, well, there's really, the idea of controlling a narrative, there's no obvious money. But there is, you know, obvious power. Like I said, when we saw Bill Clinton was asked a question about him, and he tripped all over his dick and couldn't answer it. And then the very next broadcast day, he was sitting in front of Stephen Colbert, and Stephen Colbert said out loud, "Here, sir, you screwed up the question about you the first time, so let's do a redo. I'm going to ask you the exact same question now that you've had a few days to think about it and a few speech writers to work on it. Let me ask you this exact same question over again. Here you go, sir. Answer away." Power. Narrative. Why would they want to control the narrative? Right? What's in it for you? what's in it for you? Why would you want to talk about that? Why would you want to control that particular narrative and not talk about the fact that there's a terrorist camp in Taos, New Mexico? What's happening? Like, I don't get it. What's happening? Ugh. All right. Now listen. I wanted to start the show off with this. And the thing is, when I sit down to record, it's all stream of conscious. You know what I mean? I just kind of go where my mind goes. But I wanted to talk about this because it made me very happy over the weekend to see one of our listeners. His name is Edgar Bevins, right? He's a ghost creep, so he probably uses a flip phone. He doesn't have Twitter. He doesn't have Telegram. When he contacts me, he uses the messaging service on Patreon, right? And he didn't contact me this weekend, but I was flipping through. What was I flipping through? Where did I see it? It was on LinkedIn. He contacts me on LinkedIn and on Patreon. And on LinkedIn, I saw that he had created a GoFundMe page. And Edgar is a soldier. He's a guy that served in the army, and his back's all jacked up, and he's going to have surgery. He's got 3 herniated discs. And by the way, I can sympathize with that. It's awful, right? And Edgar has decided that he needs to bite the bullet, get that surgery done, and it's going to put him down for about a month. And that's about right. Right, so he puts out the GoFundMe saying, "Look, I need about $1,000, right? $1,000, not a lot of money, and he needs that money so that he can pay his bills while he's out of work, right?" And so I take that, Edgar's, he's one of our own, right? Even though he's not on Telegram, and he's not on Twitter or whatever, he's one of us, and we know him, right? Sort of. He's been around a long time, so I put that out on my Telegram. I put it out on my Twitter, and a number of you guys gave a couple of shekels. I can't tell you, like, that really, stuff like that. It's like, okay, it's all worth it, Like, I talk about all the time, like, building a community and sticking together in community, and like, I got to see that this weekend in you guys, right? One of our people came and he didn't even do it. Like, he doesn't know that I did that. I didn't talk to him about that. Like, probably not until today, if he listens to this particular podcast episode, like, he's probably not going to know that I did that. But it's like, okay, well, I know Edgar, so I feel comfortable with putting this GoFundMe in front of you guys in Telegram and on Twitter and whatever. And some people gave some money. It's like, that's what I'm talking about. That's the important thing. You know what I mean? Because I get people, particular, not just on email, but like on Twitter, I'll accept, I'll give somebody a follow back. And I'm always skeptical when it's like some hot girl with her tits sticking out or yoga pants or whatever. But she has things on her page that it's like, okay, she loves the Constitution and, she likes whatever, I don't know, the Second Amendment, whatever. Like, I'll give a follow back, and then sure enough, 10 minutes later, I'll get a direct message saying, "Oh, hey, I see that you're a patriot. How would you like to give me some money?" It's like, bitch, I don't know you. You know what I mean? I don't know you. Don't write me with a bunch of flowery, sort of. Don't fluff me up and ask me for some money. I don't know you. I don't know who you are. I don't know what you want. I have no idea. You know what I mean? Like, you're probably like that shitty guy in Africa that was trying to scam me, and I got him on the show that time. If any of you guys remember that, like, you're probably some dude in Africa trying to scam money. I don't know you. You know what I mean? You can't be like, if you want to be a part of the community, that's different. Don't just walk up to me and ask me for some money. You freaking, like, don't do that. So, but when it comes to us, it's like, well, dude, I know who Edgar Bevins is, right? I know who Todd Milligan is. I know who Sven, who lives in Poland. I know who he is, right? We've talked. not talked, but like, messaged back and forth. Like we all know each other. And it's like, oh, hey, brothers, we got a brother in need here. Send him $5. You know what I mean? Because I had, like, Michael Whitlock wrote, he says, man, because he gave him some money. He's like, man, I wish I could have gave him some more. Dude, don't think like that, man. Many hands make light work. You know what I mean? He needs $1,000. It's $1,000, man. It's nothing. And if 250 people sent him $5, he'd be there. You know what I mean? So it's $5. Everybody's got that. I'm not just saying, like, I am trying to plug Edgar's GoFundMe, but I'm not just trying to do that. I'm just trying to show, like, that's the beauty of community, man. You might have, a gigantic mountain that you got to get over, and like right now, dude, if I had $1,000, that would change my freaking life. But I still understand, like, it's a lot of money when you need it, but by itself, it's not a lot of money. And when somebody's up against it like that, it's like, dude, my back's all jacked up. I build cabinets for a living. That's a lot of bending over and twisting and, whatever. It hurts. I got to go get surgery, man, and I need $1,000 so that I can pay my bills while I'm laying around in bed, healing up, probably playing Xbox or PS3, depending on, what kind of person you are. But, you know what I mean? And you can reach out to the community if you've established that trust. Then you know what I mean? Like there's authority in that, there's power in that. Where it's like, hey, everybody, give, don't give, whatever, but like I know who this person, Todd Milligan ran a GoFundMe. I believe that there was somebody in their community that had passed away, and I guess money was kind of tight for funeral expenses. I didn't pull it. Todd, I'm sorry, I didn't pull it up before I spoke on it. But it's like, look, dude, if you have something, you know what I mean? Maybe you have like a GoFundMe that's very personal to you. Maybe you have some sort of artistic expression where it's like, you created, like maybe you wrote something, like a book or a piece of music or something, and you want to get it out there. Right, you want to get it out there in the social media spaces so that other people can see it, consider it, absorb it, pay for it, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, if we know you, come on in and let the community know, and we will do everything that we can to promote that. That's the beauty of community. It makes life less hard, right? And so I wanted to thank all of you guys that did that. Right, that kicked down a couple of bucks to Edgar. That's huge, and it made me very happy because it's like, oh, cool. I did put together a place where people could come together and get to know each other and have that sort of camaraderie where if people come to us and they say, hey, I'm in need, it's like our initial response is not going to be skepticism. I hate that when that happens. I hate that when strangers write to me on Twitter and they say, hey, give me some money. It's like, dude, don't call on my compassion like that, because then I have to tell you no. I have to tell you no. Because I don't know you, But when it is somebody that I know, then it's like, cool, my life is going to be enriched because you have made it available to me to enrich your life in part. And we both win. We both get enriched. You know what I mean? We both get enriched. That's a beautiful thing. And it was beautiful to see. So I wanted to thank you guys for that. And if you're new, come on to the Telegram group, man. If you don't know what Telegram is, it's this new thing. If you want to join us on the Telegram group, you go on to arch-advocate.com. Archadvocate.com. Archadvocate.com. Go on to Arch Advocate. Go down to the very bottom. You click on the Twitter one. You click on the Telegram one. Click on the Facebook one. Join us on social media, please, and join the conversation. And if you want to kick down a couple of bucks a month, for the show, you can do that on Patreon, If you just want to throw a little dough, like a one-time thing, you can do that on PayPal. Some people find that easier. If you just want to throw some money towards Edgar Bevins, because we got a brother who's down right now, or coming up in the future when he has his surgery, do that, man. Either way, man, it was really good to see. So, to recap the show, I am back on the I don't like Tai Lopez show, and damn it, Ben Shapiro. Now if I see somebody on your show that I think is BS, I'm not even going to watch. And you're not going to get that Google money. You're not going to get that YouTube dough, bro. Don't have Tai Lopez on. I don't want to hear from him. I don't want to hear from Sam Harris. Sam Harris's whole thing is determinism, right? It's a shitty idea, and I liked it even less when it was original and it was coming from John Calvin, right? I'm hoping at least one of you people get that reference. Determinism is Calvinism. It's Calvinism, and it's 500 years old. It was a shitty idea then that ultimately got Calvin labeled as a heretic, and it's a shitty idea now, and I don't want to hear it. People have been arguing about that for 500 years, and we have all come to consensus, like, this is a shitty idea. Let's stop talking about it. It's dumb. Having the discussion about determinism is the same thing to me as like having the idea of socialism by way of government intervention. I don't want to have that conversation either. I don't even want to have it. It's dumb. We've already proven it's dumb. I don't want to have it. I don't want to talk about breadlines and all the people that are going to be thrown in unmarked graves if we try socialism again. It's not worth having. The discussion is not worth having. I would much rather discuss the viability or the existence of Santa Claus. That argument. I would rather have that argument with you than discuss socialism or Calvinism. Otherwise known, or the new way of saying Calvinism, determinism. It's dumb. So when I see Sam Harris on Ben Shapiro, it's like, I'm not going to watch that. I know what you think, Sam Harris. I'm familiar with the argument. It sucked 500 years ago. It sucks today. Stop talking about it. Anyways, wow. Kind of went off there at the end. Hey, thanks for listening. Tim Preuss is coming back on the show. I'm very excited about that. Tim, good hearing back from you. Looking forward to rejoining our efforts again. Thanks for listening. Tune in tomorrow. There's going to be even more great stuff, man. That's how I do every day. Talk to you tomorrow.